Introducing today's speaker. I have so come to appreciate this young man over the time that I've known him, and introducing today's speaker is John Moorfield.
The Harrisburg Regional Chamber started about 140 years ago. Since that time, the population in this region has quadrupled. Not quite the national average, but certainly a significant amount. This past decade, Cumberland County, as you probably know, was the fastest growing county in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the regions served by the chamber, the Harrisburg Regional Chamber. To address the toolbox of services that are necessary as this community has continued to evolve, I'm really pleased to introduce Ryan Unger. I think you'll find in Ryan both that youthful enthusiasm, but also a solid knowledge of how this interaction between community, business, industry, and government really can work. Ryan, after graduating from Elizabethtown College, perhaps an alumni with Chris Baldrige, after graduating, joined the Greater Chamber of Commerce of the Susquehanna Valley, sort of headquartered in the Lewisburg area, Lewisburg-Selinsgrove area. He moved to CEDACOG, which is an 11-county government economic development organization, also in Lewisburg. And he was there until 2010, when he moved to the Harrisburg area to join Team Pennsylvania as their policy director. He then became their president and CEO in 2015, something like that. What I really like about Ryan, though, you'll see today in that enthusiasm. So I'm pleased to welcome Ryan Unger.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone sticking around after lunch today as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Megan Backmore of our team, who's Membership Services Director. If you have any questions, just ask Megan after we're done. And I'm going to take speaker's prerogative. My happy news is just a couple of weeks ago, Megan was recognized as a 20 under 20 recipient for HYP and received their Community Connector Award. So we appreciate all that she does in the community as well. Yeah, give her another round. As well as directors of our boards of directors at the Creedican Chamber. I see John Hickey here and Andy Hetrick, and appreciative of them. I was kind of floating there on the screen for a little bit. That was pretty cool. I know, right? I'm gonna dance and do something of that nature. In fact, I'm reminded whenever I speak in front of a Rotary group, and those of you who had heard me speak before continue to chuckle and loud about what I'm about to say, but I remember I was a Rotarian for 10 years. When as you heard, I worked at the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce in Shamokin Dam and was a member of the Sunbury Rotary Club there for a period of about 10 years, and then was asked to speak at the Selinsgrove Rotary. And as a 23-year-old, I was incredibly excited and honored I got this chance to address the Rotary Club and business leaders throughout the region about kind of my journey and what we were doing at the Chamber. And when I got to sit down, similar to what I was sitting here today, the president of the Rotary Club leaned over and said, Ryan, just remember for these meetings, you're kind of like the body at an Irish wake. They need you there to have the party, but no one really expects you to say anything at all. But it's with that spirit that today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my background. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I've come from and a little bit about the economy of the region. Because whenever I talk about our work, I want to root it in who we are as a region in terms of our assets, our people, the places, and of course, the numbers. So a little bit about me. You heard I went to Elizabethtown College, and that is first where I got an opportunity to really touch about what a chamber can do in your community. I was our student senate representation to the Elizabethtown Area Chamber of Commerce and developed programs for town-gown relations. And it led to my work at the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber, where I did similar work in connecting our downtowns and Main Street groups to a regional chamber of commerce that served 4 counties in the Greater Susquehanna Valley. Then I had a chance to go work for a larger organization called CEDACOG, which, while an acronym that can confuse a lot of folks, very simply is an 11-county council of governments that covers that region that centers in Lewisburg and Sunbury, goes as far north as Williamsport, as west as State College, and right to Perry County, which is part of the Chamber's coverage area as well, and worked on a variety of projects, including short line railroad development, infrastructure projects, and other similar work around community and economic development. In the last 10 years, I've had a chance to work at Team Pennsylvania prior to joining the Chamber, which is the state's public-private partnership for economic and workforce development, co-chaired by a business leader and the governor of the Commonwealth. And I had a chance to both work with Governor Corbett and Governor Wolf through that work. In the last 10 years, I have been a resident here in the city of Harrisburg, first in Uptown, the last 8 or so years in Midtown, and then this past summer, as I look at Wendell, thank you for the sale, into a house in Midtown Harrisburg, right on Verbeck Street, right near Dave's shop there in Hardscrabble. And then I guess, why am I here? Like, why am I a chamber president? Like, why did I take a chance at this opportunity? I was honest when the search committee first approached me that I wasn't necessarily looking for a change at that point, right in the middle of a pandemic. I had been at Team PA through multiple administrations, felt secure there, and enjoyed the work. But when I was approached and I had a chance to talk to the search committee, to those involved and engaged, it really resonated. A group of individuals and business leaders that really had a passion for this community and this region that I felt mirrored what I felt as well. And there's something about getting a chance to do this work every day and then come home in the town where you call home. It's not that I didn't love doing statewide economic development work. I did, but there's something different about driving to Erie and doing a meeting and then coming back to Harrisburg, or driving up to the Poconos or the Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. And this is my home. This is where I have lived for 10 or so plus years. And now I've lived here longer than I lived in my hometown of Sunbury. And when I say I'm going home, someone asked me this morning, are you gonna go home for Thanksgiving? I'm like, well, no, I'm gonna go to my parents' house up in Sunbury. And this is where my home is in Harrisburg. And to get a chance, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of the Chamber and some of the work we've done, is really a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm excited about it. We've got a great team at the Chamber. We've got great leaders. And I think, and I'll talk a little bit about why I think it's a historic time for the work that we do. So who we are very quickly as a Chamber, you heard John talk about it. I really view, and I think our team views and our board views, as a Chamber as a place where we can convene business leaders together to help move the region forward. You know, Margaret Mead said there's, never doubt the power of a small group of citizens to change the world, right? Indeed, nothing ever has. And throughout our region's history, and throughout the Commonwealth and other places, chambers of commerces and EDCs have been these places where business leaders can come together to move the needle for their region. As a chamber, we are the only 5-star accredited chamber in EDC within our coverage area of Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry County. Less than 2% of chambers nationwide get that. It means we go through a pretty rigorous process with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to receive that accreditation process. We have 900 plus members, thanks Megan, from 3 counties in Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry counties that represent 160,000 employees throughout that region. And again, what made this opportunity unique is we are a merged chamber and EDC, whereas a chamber serves as that convener and can serve as that group that provides value to the business community, whether it be advocacy, membership, or benefit services, things of that nature, to help specifically the business community. And the EDC being an economic development arm that can provide brownfield redevelopment, business attraction, lending services. It can really be that toolbox to make those things happen. There's only a handful of those opportunities and places throughout the Commonwealth. South of us in York is similar to that, the York County Economic Alliance. You don't have it in Philadelphia. You do have it in Pittsburgh. But throughout the state, there's probably less than 10 of us that exist in this merged opportunity. I have a chance to participate in a group called the Chamber of Commerce 100 CEOs from throughout the country at the U.S. Chamber. It's an advisory group for them. When we get together, those of us that have that same type of operation usually sit at the same table, right, to share ideas. And again, it's a small subset. So this region had the foresight years ago to see the value in doing that, to be on the same page, to help, again, move that needle and push the region forward. So how are we going to do that at the Harrisburg Regional Chamber and CREDIC? I'm going to go through kind of 4 different areas that I think are important to be our foundation as an organization. One, it's important as an organization that we're inclusive and not exclusive. I think traditionally many people think of a Chamber of Commerce, it's a membership-based organization, right? So there's a barrier right away. They can think of an organization as being exclusive. I think it's important for us to allow what we recognize for certain programs and services and benefits. There is a membership fee, that we be inclusive in how we operate, how we lead, and how we set that table for the region. Give you an example, as a chamber board of directors, we're undergoing a nomination process now. One thing we did to do that is look at where our board of directors is now in relation and representation of our dues revenue, our membership revenue, and the region. We're not going to be all aligned right away in all 3 of those areas. But as an organization, it's important that that board and group be representation and representative of the region. I view that last part of the region as the aspirational piece, and then we need to keep on pushing because that's still representative of existing systems. I told our board when they said, well, why do we want to be representative of the region? And if you set that as your only goal and you look at business ownership, you would have 27% of your board being female, right? Because those are historically underrepresented in those areas. And that's not acceptable. We need to push against that and look to lead in those areas. That's understanding how our systems are constructed, how we lend out our money, how we redevelop properties and things of that nature. Secondly, I want us to understand what's happening in the pulse of our community, that we know where business transactions are taking place, and that we have a recognition of where we're going, to where that puck is going to be, right? Wayne Gretzky said, I'm good, I'm not great, I'm not good, because everyone else skates where the puck is. We want to skate to where the puck is going to be. So we want to understand what's happening out there in the business community. And a big part of that is to be data-driven. That's why I'm going to spend a chunk of my time talking about where we're at right now at the end of a pandemic and as we emerge from it going forward, that we need to understand what the economics are. I love economic development. I've been doing it for 20 years now. My knees shake sometimes when I say that. But a lot of my brethren and friends in economic development, man, they love development, right? Like development's awesome. Let's turn dirt, let's cut ribbons, let's get shovels out there and take pictures and hard hats and things like that. And that's great. And that's critically important. We have to understand the economics of that. Like, why are we doing that? What's leading to that? And let's make sure that we're doing that in a smart, strategic way, especially with the amount of money that's going to be available on the horizon for this region. And again, I want us to be relentlessly positive about this region. One of the things that we've tweaked and changed about our director meetings, and you'll notice some of our directors can attest to that. We start each meeting out with a mission moment, a story about a way that our organizations have made a difference or impact in the community or in a business. We also ask our directors, why do you serve? Why do you live here? Like, why do you want to be here and make a difference? And it's important in our communication and how we talk about our organization that our first instinct isn't to complain about, oh man, the street's closed on 2nd Street. What a pain in the butt that is every week to get to work. No, that's $1 million project that's going to improve our community. And I'm excited to sit there just a little bit longer to get to work. We got to be positive, and that muscle memory is important to us as an organization. And I think as a region that we know what's happening and we're positive about what's going to be happening in our community. So a little bit about the economy of the region and where we stand today. As John talked to you, our population in this region is growing. If you look a little bit to the north of us, where I used to do work, they don't have the same problems or challenges that you would say we have for growth right now. But I would remark that while our region is one of the fastest growing in the Commonwealth, it is about at the national average, right? John touched upon that right there. And I'd encourage us to be a little more aspirational. I can say this now that I'm not at Team PA, just as good as PA, right? Like, we want to be better than that, right? We want to be better than that average, because job growth has remained stagnant at a state level, and so has population growth. You can see that. You know, I have a former colleague who worked at DCED who talks often about in the 1930s, right? Half as many congressmen and women now that we had at that point. Our share of the percentage of the nation is dwindling, and it's not a sustainable path. Our unemployment rate, I think we all know that our unemployment rate now is at a good level. It peaked, that peak at the top there you can see is at the pandemic. We're at about 4.6% right now in the region. I told our board last week that when I began this work, man, we would have been popping champagne bottles. If you're under 5%, that's what we called before, quote unquote, full employment, that you were doing good. Take the week off as an economic developer, you've got full employment. I don't think any of our businesses now can say that we're in a great spot, right? Population, and I'll talk about it, is a percentage of those looking for work. And that's where the gap is right now in terms of those looking for work. And one of the things we've definitely seen as we've gone forward here is a spike in wage. You see a little bit of a dip during the pandemic. The last 4 quarters, so I like to normalize this. I don't like to make decisions or report on what's happening month to month. The last 4 quarters, wages have increased over 5%. So that's a significant increase. You know, typically sometimes when we budget, we talk about 3 to 5% increases, right, for salaries and wages, and that creates a lot of different pressures in our economy. And one area that we're seeing this increase is in high wage and medium wage earners. The data that you can see in the PowerPoint slide here indicates those that kind of beginning of that point is January 10th, 2020, right when the first case of COVID. It's a website called Track the Recovery. And what it does is it reports on how we're doing since the first case of COVID was reported in the United States. The bottom line is we have less low wage workers today than we had at the beginning of the pandemic. So we've got a ton more of high and medium wage workers than we did before. We've also received a historic shock to our economy. I think sometimes we get along, we have to wear masks, and we know our life's inconvenience. We certainly see the effects of COVID, but we sometimes forget the historic shock it was to our economy. We lost, you can see, and it's a little bit wordy, but we're about there, about fourth on that chart in Pennsylvania. Just to show you, on the right is job growth over 4 years, on the left is job losses. We lost 4 years of jobs in 1 year of the pandemic. That's a significant impact to our economy, and we're still kind of feeling our way through that. Now, you can see other states that had larger job growth, like California and New York and Florida and Texas. They lost a percentage. We lost all the jobs that we gained over 4 years, and we lost those jobs predominantly in accommodations and food services, which are coming back slowly, but not at the same rate as they were before. And we also just saw an accelerant of things that had taken place in the past. So retail, different areas like that, where we knew there was significant job loss before the pandemic and then post-pandemic. This is the wonkiest chart I'll show. What I want to show by this is most of the job loss, you can see that line that goes through there. Anything over 100 is easily autonomized, right? So that means businesses can adapt and achieve efficiencies with less people traditionally, according to economists. So those jobs typically don't come back after a recession. So if we continue to wait for some of those jobs to come back, we might be in a more difficult situation because we lost jobs, distribution, and again, service industries that typically can achieve efficiencies post-pandemic. It shows you that the economy traditionally impacted communities of color at a higher rate in percentage. Sometimes we look at this data and we say 20% of those that were long-term unemployed were communities of color. Well, that is a significant multiplier effect or impact over those that are white. And we need to know that, we need to understand that and develop systems to assist with that. This is the chart that I was going to talk about regarding, Tim, I remember if I said earlier, unemployment is a gauge of those that are looking for work, right? So what we've seen here is from some work that's done in Lancaster that we're going to replicate here in the Harrisburg area. And what it shows is a continuing, you see that line? That's a line of the gap of jobs available and those that are leaving, the workforce. So what you continue to see is a compounding of those that are leaving the workforce. In the last year alone, in the Harrisburg region, we've lost around 4,000 to 5,000 people that are no longer looking for work. So we hear about workforce participation. That's what that is. And the question is, we don't know who those people are. And there's not one silver bullet. I hear that often that, oh, it's because we've got extraordinary benefits right now through the child care tax credit, stimulus payments, or could it possibly be because those individuals have retired, right? There's a larger percentage of those that are 55 plus in our region than nationally. Did they perhaps retire or are fearful because they're at a higher risk of COVID to re-enter service jobs and things of that nature? The truth is it's a little bit of everything, and that makes it really difficult to understand, ascertain, and do kind of a really quick solution. And I think that's why we've struggled for that workforce participation as we go forward. In terms of our percent change in employment there, again, just to kind of continue to talk about those, we have lost a significant amount of leisure and hospitality job. Almost everything else has returned, and we're still at a significant gap. We continue to spend money at a higher rate than we did before the pandemic. Consumer spending is actually up post-pandemic, so we're spending more money. We're just spending it in different ways. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, they're pretty busy, right? We're seeing continued investments in those types of stores, and grocery stores are up about 13 to 15%, whereas other places have continued to suffer: in-person retail, and again, leisure and hospitality. For those in the real estate market, they would understand this. People are looking for different things in their homes now than they were before. We're spending less time outside the home, so we're spending more time in the home, right? So we're even at 4 to 5%, it's a pretty big jump. So we're spending about less time out in the community doing things. Now, when we go out, we're doing it differently. We're spending that time and we're going to parks and recreation and things of that nature 30% more than we did before the pandemic. And I'm going to touch upon here in the conclusion why I think that's something to build on and that we should capitalize in this region. And I don't have to tell you that we have a significant number of job postings. We have 2 available jobs for every unemployed person in this region now. And a large percentage of those jobs are what economists would call medium to low skilled jobs. Previously, when we would do this work prior to the pandemic, we talked about a skills gap, right? We had unskilled labor that we needed to get into high-tech innovation, computer-based jobs. Right now, we've got Jesse McCree at the Workforce Development Board. He calls it a sandsdemic. We just want the people to fill those opportunities as we go forward. In addition, just touch upon, I know we continue to see significant supply chain challenges in our community and region. That just shows you the backup at Savannah and Long Beach. You can go to a website and look at the container ships, and they're just sitting. And we're going to continue to see, I know the last several weeks there's been efforts, but it's something that we're watching in this region. We've heard anecdotally, and we've seen some survey data that shows that there's some concerns and challenges, and we want to make sure that that's addressed. So how will our work change going forward? The first piece of this is something I talk about called placemaking, and why placemaking is important. This is Market Square, right outside the Harrisburg Hilton, right? This is at the turn of the century. And any picture you look at Market Square has these groups of people coming around Market Square. I found a picture online, Dave, you'd love it, where people were looking at somebody that was just flipping scores of a baseball game. Like they attend a baseball game at score, they'd flip it out, people gathered around and watched those scores change at Market Square. As Chris knows, I'm active with Elizabethtown College. I participated in the group, and they asked, where do you get your senior pictures taken? And none of us could really answer. The Dell was an answer, but it's a big open grass field, right? We needed to do a better job on campus of creating those places and spaces. So I asked some of my coworkers, like, if you had a bag lunch in downtown Harrisburg, where would you take it? Where would you go? And there's really not a lot of great places. There's great restaurants that have great places to eat outside, and that's awesome. But do we have open spaces and placemaking where you'd want to do that? We underwent a project with the Harrisburg Young Professionals, kind of re-envision what Market Square could look like. Can we make this a place-based activity? Or this is just an example. These were some master plans developed by Sasaki and Associates, a group out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. But it's kind of how we want to think about economic development go forward. Let's keep an eye towards making places in our communities that people want to come and gather, because it's a talent-based economic development strategy. People are going to pick places to live, and then they're going to look for the jobs to fill them. So let's make places they want to be. Another part of that is something that we call a 15-minute city. So a 15-minute city means that you've got access to healthcare, arts and culture, recreation, groceries, mass transit, and a school or education. So I put the pin right outside of here at the Harrisburg Hilton. And lo and behold, there's something that Paris is using for their planning to gauge if they're a successful community. We got it here in the Harrisburg region. We've got that. Either a 15-minute or 20-minute walk or a 15-minute drive. Can you reach those things? So do we have places that have all those things? Let's check those boxes when we're building communities or trying to grow our region. Employee empowerment is something that we're going to continue to try to understand. Chambers are traditionally places where employers come together, right? So they're places that businesses come to grow. Nothing in our bylaws talks about bring remote workers to the table, right? Or talk about, Zoom meetings or things of that nature. How do our services and our membership values and benefits connect to those individuals that perhaps are on somewhat of an island as an employee and want to connect more to their community? Because that's going to be a growing percentage of our population. So we need to make sure that we make it an important part of our work going forward. And then finally, it's important for us to lead by convening. And it's one of the reasons I was really excited about this opportunity. These are my dogs, my girlfriend and I's dog. That's Teddy and Max. And everyone always smiles when they see them. Makes me happy. If you see me, Dave's probably seen me a lot out there, taking them on a walk right outside my house on Verbeck. And they're both taken around the same spot. I power them up and down Front Street when I can. And there's a sign at the corner of Front and Riley. And it talks about Mira Lloyd Dock in the City Beautiful movement, which was something began in the late early 20th century, late 19th century. And if you read that sign, it says she unveiled it at a speech to the Harrisburg Board of Trade, which is the predecessor to the Harrisburg Regional Chamber of Commerce. So even back then, the Chamber was a place where people with big ideas, big dreams, and big concepts to move our region forward, and went to the Harrisburg Board of Trade in the Chamber to try to help make that a reality. And that's the kind of place that we want to create at the Chamber for the next Mira Lloyd Dock to come up with her big idea to change our region going forward. Again, thanks for the opportunity today. I think a little bit over, but I have time for a question or two. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And just stay right here.
Okay.
We've got 3 minutes for a couple of questions. Questions, anyone?
Do you have anybody within your circle? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have anybody within your circle, your advisors, your board? I'm not sure, that is adept at sustainable economics?
I mean, I meet with Doug Neidig regularly. If you in terms of, you're talking about like green sustainable, like green work. Yeah, I think it's important. My girlfriend's got a electric car, so I know the gaps of electric charging downtown, right? Like that's a meeting next week with some members of council to talk about the opportunities in bipartisan infrastructure that was passed a few weeks ago. There's significant incentives for that, for sustainable economic development to be a heart of that. And there's no reason that we as a region can't be as progressive as Pittsburgh was, right? Pittsburgh is a home right now. If you go out there, I remember 15 years ago hearing about this thing called green, LEED design, right? And green building. And PNC was a leader in that. And if you go to their call centers and their headquarters and different things of that nature, Pittsburgh, which is one, you couldn't walk around Pittsburgh at the turn of the century. It was so dark from the soot and the air pollution, and they still have challenges, but they have become a center for sustainability. I don't see a reason that we can't do that here in the region. So I'm glad to talk to you more about it, Jar, but yeah, I do talk. No, good. And I talk to, like I said, Doug and I, we'll meet and we talk a lot, and I think we can continue to do more. Yeah.
How can Rotary help?
How could Rotary help? Be relentlessly positive. I like your idea about that. So I think, we as members of this community, first and foremost, are our best ambassadors, right? So when you go home over Thanksgiving, that's why that pulse knowing piece, that pulse knowing piece to me is important for all the other pieces, right? For the positivity piece, that we talk about the great stories and things that are happening in our region, like why we think this is a great place to live, work, and play. Why did I take this opportunity? Why am I here in downtown Harrisburg? I sometimes get a little too defensive maybe about it. And I think we certainly can look at our region. That doesn't mean we don't look at our region critically, right? And look for ways that we can be better. We always have to have that belief that we can be better. But I would encourage you to continue to be relentlessly positive about this region. I mean, you're here, you're actively engaged in the community because you want to see it be improved and be better. And we want you to continue to do that.
Can we get you back at the end of this year? No,
Sure.
just wait a minute.
Yeah.
To report on how we've helped or how
Sure.
the city of
Yeah.
Harrisburg has improved in that year?
We'd love that. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.